All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Raw Intuition Health Show. It is great to be with you all, as always. I appreciate you joining us every Sunday. And today we have an incredible guest and a really important topic that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So today we have one of my longtime mentors that I follow from afar, somebody that I've followed since I've gotten into this lifestyle. I've learned so much from our guest, Paul Nison. And Paul is a 30-plus year raw vegan and founder of the rawlifehealthshow.com or rawlifehealthshow.com. Got that linked in the description box down below for you guys to go check out. He's got a member website, and he's got a lot of great resources for you guys to check out. So, a little background on Paul before we bring him in. Paul is a raw food chef, educator, author, and father who has been eating a raw diet since he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis more than 30 years ago. Today, he is 100% cured of his so-called incurable disease and still eats a mostly, or I think all at this point, raw diet. Paul is the author of 8 books. He has been featured on the Food Network and in several magazines and newspapers around the world. He travels the world giving lectures on raw food nutrition and raw food prep classes to show people how easy and fun the raw life can be. So in this episode, we're going to discuss 6 keys to being successful long-term on a raw food diet. And I'm so excited to have Paul on the show, so let's bring him in here. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, everybody. And I'm excited for this. And thanks for all you're doing, because you've been doing a lot of work over the years, and I appreciate you and all your stuff.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. Tessa Mallory, what's up? Thanks for being here. I see you in the chat already, so thanks for being here and supporting the show as always. Annie, you as well. So guys, get your questions ready for the Q&A at the end. You'll have a chance to win. As always, I'll be giving away one of my ebooks you get to select them, whichever one you want. And then Paul is going to give away an ebook of his as well. Paul, do you want to share what that's going to be?
Yeah, The Raw Life, which was my first book and still best-selling book. So I'll be happy to give an ebook away to one of the people that are listening. How could I see the chat? Is it where is it on Instagram, or is there another way?
If you pull up the YouTube video, you could see it that way. Otherwise, I don't think it shows in Zoom.
Okay, I'm looking for the YouTube link.
Oh yeah. Here, let me see. I can send that to you here.
Yeah, okay, great. All right.
So yeah, if you don't mind, so we like to start every show with just kind of getting a background of our guests. And so if you could just share kind of your, story, how you got to where you are, doing what you're doing. I'm sure a lot of people here probably already know who you are, but for the people that don't, if you could just share a little bit, that would be awesome.
Yes. So when I was 19 years old, I was growing up in New York City, well, Brooklyn, New York. And I wasn't into health. I was into sports, and I was very fit and into fitness. I was eating the standard American diet to a degree, a little okay, because I was trying to compete at sports. So I was looking at what I was eating, but didn't know anything. And to make a long story short, I got diagnosed with something called inflammatory bowel disease, which is also known as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. I went to the doctor. I did everything the doctor was telling me to do. I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse. And she said I was at a high risk for colon cancer, and they might have to cut out my colon if I continued getting sick. She said there was no connection between diet or anything else. Somebody told me about a vegan diet. Didn't know what that was at the time. Uh, Tried it, saw some success. I ended up near Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I met Brian Clement and learned about the raw food diet. I called my doctor in New York to ask what she thought about it. She said it won't work, it's very bad. So I knew I was on the right track. I fired my doctor and I went on a raw vegan diet. That was 30 years ago, and haven't looked back.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think that should be inspiration to so many people out there who do get that message from their doctor or even from loved ones that maybe they think that there's nothing they can do to overcome a condition that they're experiencing, but as you said that your condition is labeled as an incurable disease, but you clearly used a holistic lifestyle and raw foods to overcome that. So I hope people take note of that and they realize that we do have much more power over our health outcomes than we might think.
Yeah, and I could tell you that, the path wasn't completely smooth. As you learn, you experiment and you go on, and anyone that's doing this for 30 years that says they've been doing the same thing since they started, something's not doesn't sound right about that, because you got to experiment, change, and I did sometimes, and I had some setbacks, but it helped me learn, it helped me grow, and after 30 years of doing this, I could be honest with you that I'm still learning, and I probably learned more this year than I've learned in the 29 years prior. So it's a path that you never stop learning, hopefully, and be willing to experiment. And that's what I'm doing and been doing, and I just feel amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, and that is something that I really appreciate about you, is that you do continue to open, your channel up to maybe viewpoints that you don't necessarily agree with. Some, obviously you do with some of them, but you're open to hearing other people's, experiences and learning from that. And I think that's a really important thing for everybody to do when, they're trying to learn about this lifestyle or really anything else. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you want to start us off with your first, tip for how to be successful long term, because I don't know that there's many people out there that are better experienced than you are at this lifestyle.
Well, I don't know what we would consider long term, because most people aren't eating. We talk about an all raw food diet or a high raw food diet. So, what do you consider long term, and what are you talking about, 100% or just adding fruits and vegetables?
I would say y- any. I wouldn't say it has to be 100% raw, but I would just say I think the goal for everybody is just to have the optimal level of health. Live a long, healthy life, being able to do what they want to do. Not having chronic disease or being limited by their health. So I guess that would be probably everybody's goal. So how can they use raw foods in a way that will help them do that?
So, okay, so that being said, these tips, whether it's raw food, standard American diet, or anything, these 6 pointers are going to help people tremendously. When you talk about raw foods, you just gotta, I'll get into my tip number 5, just keep an eye on things and a little bit more closely. But my number one overall tip is to find out what's creating the disease and get rid of it. Because health doesn't begin with what we add to our diet, it begins with what we eliminate. And if you haven't been diagnosed with a disease yet and you're not paying attention to this, you will. So get rid of the things that are known to cause the problem if you don't have a problem. But if you have an issue, get rid of what's causing the problem. And we want to eat the foods that are ideal for our bodies. Those are the foods that give us the most nutrients with the least amount of energy to get those nutrients using the least amount. So if you take processed standard American diet food, if you take dead animals and you take all these foods that are hard to digest, and that can even be vegan foods, your body has to use more energy to get what it needs. And if there's less nutrients in there to get it, you're using very much to get very little. So the ideal key when you're eating is to use very little to get very much. And when we look at it from a food standpoint, the ideal foods for our body are raw, ripe, fresh, organic fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Now, my number one key, so knowing that, that's important to know. And we're talking about raw foods, so I assume we all know that. Knowing that, the number one thing I would recommend for success long time at health is to be careful with overeating. People are not eating for nutrition. Most people, they're eating for pleasure. They're eating for to fill a void, to fill a need, just like some people run to drugs and alcohol for comfort. A lot of people run to food and they don't know it. And overeating is more harmful, even on a raw vegan diet, than anything out there. And I see a lot of people creating a lot of problems. So the question becomes, well, what is overeating? Because there's no standard definition of how much is too much. And it might be different for each individual based on our lifestyles and things like this. But clearly, if the stomach is the size of a fist, come on, we kind of got to get an idea. And if we're eating high quality food, we don't need that much. And I see people making a big mistake by overeating, and just because they get away with it, they think it's okay, and it's not okay. So I wrote a book called The Daylight Diet, which talks about eating too much, too often, and too late. So too late would go in my overeating category, but eating late at night. Well, I guess that'd be a new category, but overeating is eating too much, and that includes too often. And that's a big mistake I see people making. I don't know how much you want me to get into it, but that is it. I can get way into it because we could talk about fasting and intermittent fasting, but I know you have your points too. So I would say overeating is something we need to watch out for.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, I think especially, would you say, I mean, obviously you can overeat on anything, as you mentioned, but do you think certain maybe macronutrients, do you see people overeating like maybe fats more, or do you think fruits more, like carbohydrates more, or proteins, or all of it?
On a raw food diet,
Yeah.
uh, on a raw food diet, I see people overeating on recipes.
Okay.
And I also see people, and again, the name overeating can be it might not be the same number for everyone,
Yeah.
but I see a lot of people overeating on fruit.
Okay.
A lot of people. And I asked Dr. Frank Sabatino, who I interviewed recently, uh, is it possible to overeat on fruit? And I didn't necessarily agree with his answer. He said no, because if you eat enough, you'll get full before you start overeating. I'd like to believe that was true, but I myself am guilty of overeating on fruit, going way beyond that point of I'm full and continuing to eat. I mean, I sat down and ate 6 or 7 durians in one sitting,
Oh, wow.
so we override our body's signal to say, okay, stop.
Sure.
So that's what I see.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay, well, yeah, definitely a good point for people to consider is, are we overeating or not? Because yeah, even healthy food can be overeaten. All right, so my first one is basically to make it easy. Like if you want to, get on a 100% raw lifestyle or even a high raw lifestyle, and you want to really obtain, the benefits from long-term application of this lifestyle, you should make it as easy as possible to be successful, right? So, like Paul said, don't overeat on recipes. Don't be over reliant on recipes, because when you are, one, that's going to raise the expense of living this lifestyle because you got to get all these different recipes and ingredients. And then also, it's just more time consuming typically, and it's going to be just more effort to get the results that we want. And like Paul said, you want the least amount of work to get the most benefit, right? And so if you can find easy, convenient ways, which could be just setting up your kitchen and in a good you know situation, or organizing it correctly that makes it easy to prepare your meals, to get the right tools, good blender, a good maybe juicer, a good food processor, maybe a dehydrator, things that are going to make it easy for you to be successful, because I'll tell you, there's nothing more, something that I see that other people doing is using like little tiny knives to cut up their salad, or using this really cheap blender to try and make a dressing. And it makes the process less enjoyable and more cumbersome. So if you can get yourself set up, get your kitchen set up right, get the right tools, and find easy meals that satisfy you, that are nutritious, and that are easy to create is going to help you in the long term to be successful and to really enjoy living this way, because there are definitely so many benefits. So that's my first one.
Very good. Very good. I like that.
Thank you. What do you got
Now you
next?
have different challenges than I do because I'm in the tropics
Yeah.
and you live in the cold environment, and I grew up in a cold environment with the raw food diet. So there's different challenges to make it easy.
Yep.
Uh, but definitely testing it and trying it, like gardening. The best way I learn how to garden, no matter how many videos I watch, is I do it and I fail, and then I know what's better than following year, and so on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. What do you got next for us?
Okay, number two, we kind of touched on it before, is big problem I see people doing is late night eating, eating
Mhm.
too late at night. It's not the same when you eat in the day as when you eat at night. I wrote a whole book on this called The Daylight Diet. We need to make sure we're not eating before we go to sleep. If you're eating late at night and overeating, you're not going to be successful at any type of way of eating. And this is the one of the biggest problems we have in the world. I would say my number one thing when it comes to health is not eat processed food, but hopefully if we're eating a raw diet, that doesn't have to be on this list. But eating late at night, even if it's whatever it is, before going to sleep is not a good thing. So I would encourage everyone to not eat 4 or 5 hours before going to sleep. And sleep, you want to get a good sleeping schedule and you want to get to sleep at a decent time. But don't eat before going to sleep. Don't think you can get away with it. Don't think it's a good idea. It's not a good idea. And it's one of the most common things I see people doing on a raw food diet. And I've been guilty of all these things that are on my list for a long time. And when I wrote my Daylight Diet book, the research really opened up my eyes. There was a book called there's a book by a guy, uh, an old time book, and the guy would eat anything, but he just wouldn't eat late at night. I mean,
Mm.
anything, and he just wouldn't eat it late at night, and he was in good health.
Wow.
And that's really the key. I mean, the raw food is wonderful, but you
Mhm.
could eat. This is one of the reasons why people on a carnivore diet are successful.
Sure.
It's not that they're eating animals; it's that they're leaving out all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what time they're eating, but they're certainly cut out a lot of garbage. But eating late at night is one of the bad things people are doing. So that is something people need to get a hold of, especially if you're eating a raw food diet and want to be healthy.
Yep. Totally agree. I do my best to be some like last night. I was done before 6 o'clock eating, and I usually go to bed at about 9:30 or 10. And yeah, it makes such a difference in the quality of sleep and how refreshed I feel when I wake up. And as you teach and as people are starting to become more aware of, is that we heal and our bodies detoxify throughout the night. And so if we're giving it a bunch of food, to especially heavy foods that most people are eating, to digest in the middle of the night while we're trying to rejuvenate the body, it's only gonna make things worse. So I've definitely experienced the benefits of that as well. All right. So my next one is, I wrote down a few things. I'm gonna go with, um, I'm gonna say, do periodic blood tests to make sure that everything is going as you think it is. Right? So I got into this lifestyle through, the detoxification mindset and that kind of community. And I was under the impression that if you cleaned out your body enough, that your body, would produce everything that you need on its own, especially like B12. I was told that if my gut was clean enough, the gut bacteria would create the B12 that I need. So I went about 6 or 7 years without using any supplementation, and I still felt good. But when I got a blood test for the first time, I was extremely low in B12. And so that was kind of my sign that maybe the path that I was, kind of learning from, or the community that I was learning from, while they did have a lot of good things to share and what I learned from them, but there were things that maybe weren't quite as accurate. at least in my case. So I found out that I was, deficient there. And even though I wasn't experiencing any sort of symptoms from B12 deficiency that I'm aware of, I still think you can go a long time with deficiencies and not really have any noticeable effects, but over time that could play into some health effects that you don't want. So I would say just to be safe, to get your blood checked every, few years. It doesn't have to be every year. It could be if you wanted it, but you don't have to do it every year. But, here and there, check your blood work to make sure that what you're doing is providing the results that you want. And, I would say definitely look into like your B12, your vitamin D, which I was also deficient in. Um, you could check your maybe iodine or your thyroid panel. Get your selenium and zinc checked, homocysteine and methylmalonic acid to really hone in on your B12 status. And then also, I would say check heavy metals if you have the opportunity to. I know sometimes it's difficult to get doctors to order certain tests, but if you can find a reason to give them, to make them want to order like a heavy metal panel for you, I think that can be helpful because a lot of people are exposed to heavy metals that they're unaware of, and that can cause a lot of issues in the body. So that would be my second one is to do periodic blood work just to make sure that what you're doing is having the results that you think it is.
Well, I had that on my list as well. So
Nice.
I'm glad you did that. Recently, I was talking to somebody who's 80 years old and been on a not necessarily all raw diet, but I asked how's blood work. He says he's not gotten his blood work checked in 30 years. He feels great.
Wow.
I don't think it's wise. I think it's wise to just get confirmation everything's great. And another blood test I suggest people get is a PTH.
Mm.
I'm sorry, not PTH, a CRP, which is
Oh yeah.
C-reactive protein. That checks the inflammation markers in your body. So, it's definitely a good thing to get blood work done. I get my blood work done, and so
Do you do
I
it every year or how
I
often?
I try to do it every year,
Okay.
and I been okay for the most part, but there's something I'm working on now. I'm doing a little experiment, which I'm going to be talking about this week on my channel, most likely, because I'm waiting for some results tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm excited about that, but it's a good indication to what's happening and what's going on.
Sure. I
And
agree.
for blood work, people always ask, how can you get your blood work done? I tell people, you don't have to go to a doctor. But how do you know what to check? Well, if you go to a lot of these websites that you could order blood test online and go to a local laboratory, they usually have a panel. So if you type vegan panel, they'll have the test that you should take.
Mm.
If you think you have kidney pain or that runs in your family, you type kidney panel and that'll run the test. Men's health, women over 60, they have all these different panels. So you just punch one of those in, heart panel, and it'll tell you all the tests that would be good to take.
Wow.
So, and they explain the test as well. So it's really good.
Awesome. I didn't know that. Thanks. All right. What do you got next?
Oh, and the results you get on that, remember the ranges might be a little bit different if you're on a strict raw food diet. So sometimes if it says you're low, you might be low, but sometimes you might not be.
Sure.
So you got to go to somebody who knows how to read the results to really get a good idea. So if you don't have a lot of experience with this, I'd recommend having a coaching session with somebody who has a lot of experience with blood tests and in general. So,
That's good advice. Do you have any suggestions for how people can find somebody that's a good, experienced in reading blood work?
well, yeah, the person I always go to is Dr. Fred Bishey, who's
Okay.
been eating a raw vegan diet for a long time. He's in his 90s. He's not as easy to get in touch with these days.
Hmm.
But if you can, I'd recommend him, Fred Bishey, Bisci. But there are other people out there. Dr. Tom Lodi is somebody who I recently interviewed that knows his stuff, and Joel Furman, I
Mm.
interviewed him recently. Uh, Most people with a medical background that are into the vegan diet can read blood tests pretty well. Dr. Frank Sabatino,
Hmm.
he's good as well. So there are a good amount of people out there, but I try to find somebody with a medical background.
Sure. Perfect. Right. What's on your list next?
What do you have as next?
I've got I've got a couple. I went with more than three so that if you took one that I would have some
Oh,
backups.
okay. I thought we each had to do six, but we each doing
Oh
three.
yeah, we'll each just do three.
Okay,
And
okay,
if you have additional things, you can definitely add that as well though.
okay. Well, I would say sleep, to pay attention to your sleep.
Mm,
And this is one I'm currently thinking about a lot. It's uh it's how much sleep we need and how much sleep we should get. I watched some of these there's a yogi guy online who says he only gets like 3 hours of sleep. He's a popular guy. He has a big white beard and kind of overweight, but he promotes raw food diet and
mm,
he says he only sleeps like 3 or 4 hours a night.
wow,
My experience on a raw food diet is I still need my 8 hours a night.
me too.
However, when I fast, I don't need 8 hours a night. But so we gotta I'm trying to figure it out what's ideal for me personally, and that's what we all have to physically do. One thing I'd like to start getting in the habit of is getting away from needing an alarm clock.
Mm,
I think that's a good habit, but we need to understand health to know what we're doing, if it's working for or not, or us or not, is not just how we feel. I mean, somebody could smoke crack and feel great.
yeah.
There's a lot of things that make us feel great, but is it really working? And you have your digestion, you go to the bathroom, do you feel good or bad? But also sleep is a great indicator if you're doing okay or not. You should not feel lazy and tired and weak all the time on a raw food diet. If you are, you're probably eating, miscombining your food, overeating, eating late at night. So sleep is a great indicator, and also the most important thing we need for healing. Sleep is another word for healing. This is why I say don't eat before going to sleep, because your body shouldn't be digestion. It should be healing at that time. So the more sleep you get, the more the healing is going to take place. Now, the better you eat, the less you need the healing, but the worse you eat, the more healing you need. So, when the standard American diet world is trying to take drugs to stay awake, try to get in the natural rhythms of life and try to figure out a way to get the proper amount of sleep that you need. And again, I'm experimenting now personally also with just to seeing what it is for me, because from what I hear from other people that are eating the way I'm eating for this long, I shouldn't need 8 hours a night sleep. So, but I work extremely hard. So, I don't know what they're doing all day, but even before this interview, I've been in the yard and I'm heading out there later. So, it's a little tricky thing, but I think most people overeat and undersleep, even on a raw food diet. And I think that's a problem. So, it's something to look at and consider.
Yeah, I think that's such an important one. And um, going to bed at the same time each night has made a big difference for me. I used to kind of be kind of erratic with what time I would go to bed. Sometimes it would be earlier, sometimes it would be later. But once I kind of honed in on a specific time, which is like between 9:30 and 10 now typically, it's made a difference in my quality of sleep for sure. And people should be more like you, Paul, is being outdoors enough where you're getting good sunshine, so that your body produces, the serotonin so that you can create more melatonin when you're sleeping. And so, yeah, just getting enough sunlight during the day and then make sure that you've got the enough darkness at night, is, I think, really important as well. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Um, all right. So I'm gonna go with, all right, my last one I'll say, don't make it all about the food. All right. So detoxify your environment. So it's mostly focus on detoxification in especially your environment, right? So look at the air quality in your home. So look at the things you're exposed to the most throughout the day. So your air quality in your home. If you have the opportunity to get an air purifier, or open your windows to get fresh air in the house. Um, make sure that you are using a water purifier, because there's a lot of toxins in the water. If you're eating a healthy whole food raw vegan diet and you're consuming tap water, you're likely getting in a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals and other heavy metals and toxins that you don't want in your body that are going to affect your long term health, or could affect your long term health, anyways. Um, look at the clothing you're wearing. Are you wearing a lot of synthetic clothing? Are you wearing synthetic perfumes and colognes and deodorants and other shampoos and things that you're using? These things are absorbed into the body and can affect your hormones and your sleep and just your overall functions. So definitely look at the environment that you're in. Are you making sure that you're like a fish? I use this analogy a lot. Is like a fish could be eating the perfect diet, swimming around the pond every day, getting enough exercise, but if there's a factory that's dumping toxic waste into that pond, the environment around that fish is not going to allow it to experience the health benefits of the perfect food that it's eating and the exercise it's getting and the sleep that it's getting. So it's important to look at everything holistically. Like Paul said earlier, try and eat organic if you can to reduce your exposure to pesticides and other contaminants. And yeah, look at using alternatives to the synthetic, maybe laundry detergent that you have, or the whatever else you're using. So just try and get away from synthetic products if you can, and give your body the best chance to utilize that raw food that you're eating and balance its hormones and everything that it needs to do without the encumbrance of those toxins.
Very good, very good. I like that.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all three. Did you have any honorable mentions that you wanted to throw in there before we head to the Q&A?
Yeah, I want people to just know that it's more important to be consistent than be perfect. So if you're thinking, I'm going to go 100% raw, I want to be 100%, you're better off not being 100% and being consistent than going 100% for a month and then going way down another month and going back and forth. So it goes along with what you're saying is make it easy on yourself. There's not a reason for you to be 100% unless you have the type of personality of all or none, or like me, you have an illness that if you go back, it can create issues and you don't want to deal with that. So you can be perfectly fine and healthy on a diet of less than 100% raw with the tips that we gave you here, applying those still, you can be perfectly fine. So don't make it too hard on yourself, but also, always keep experimenting, looking, thinking, and having an open mind.
Yeah, that's perfect. And the one that I'll mention quick is something, and actually I learned. I think you were one of the first people that I heard give that tip that you just gave. Is consistency is better than perfection, or like bouncing back and forth. Yeah, it's so true. Um, and yeah, I think more people should definitely think about that. But yeah, the one thing that I'll say before we head to the Q&A is just that, be open, kind of like I mentioned in the opening, be open to evolving with how you're practicing this lifestyle. As Paul mentioned earlier as well, there's nobody nobody that's a successful, long-term, healthy person is doing the exact same thing today that they did 30 or however many years ago. You learn new information, you make adjustments, you test it out, you see what works, what doesn't work, and you adjust as you go. So I think it's so important to realize that you shouldn't, for most people, you shouldn't be doing the exact same thing in 5, 10, 20 years that you're doing today, because hopefully you're being a continual student of health and lifestyle, and learning from different people like Paul and some of the people that he mentioned as well, some of those doctors, to keep doing a little bit better each and every day. So yeah, that's what I would just quick add. And Paul, before we get to the Q&A, could you just share one more time where is the best place for people to find you, and maybe mention your membership community?
Yeah, my main website is Raw Life Health Show, rawlifehealthshow.com. And on there, you can find my basic information, all my contact information, and that is my member site as well. So for like $7 a month, you get all the thousands of videos I've done over the years and categorized really nice with recipes and things like that, free ebooks and coupons and things like that. So that's the main site. And I'm all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, now TikTok, and I post there on a daily basis. So that's where everybody can find me.
Outstanding. Okay. Well, thank you so much for those great tips and inspiration. We are going to now head into the Q&A room here, and we're going to take some questions. So everybody out there, get your questions ready. Put them in the chat now. I've seen, quite a bit of comments coming through, and I do see a few question marks. So we can start with that. I did see Sherry mention that she does always feel good when she does crack. So that's
Yeah. Well,
thank
I see somebody wrote they asked about microgreens. Can we overdo that if they feel great?
yeah,
Microgreens and sprouts are a big part of my diet.
nice.
I love them, and I mean you can overeat anything, but if you're eating a good amount of meals, not too many meals, you're probably not going to overeat on the microgreens and the sprouts. But way to go, and I highly recommend everyone do that. Even though I grow my own food outside and I grow fruit trees, uh, the microgreens are this important thing, and they're very easy to do once you learn how to do it. And I definitely recommend it, and it's a big part of my diet.
Nice. Do you have a specific source where you get your sprouting seeds or microgreen seeds, or you just kind of get them anywhere?
There's a place online called True Leaf Market, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's another place here in Florida called Got Sprouts.
Okay.
It's gotsprouts.com. So those are two of the common places.
Nice. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I get them from True Leaf as well. And then also I've gotten them from sproutman.com as well. Right. Let's see what other questions are there. Let's see if you guys. Oh, thank you, Sherry. Let's see. I'll just ask quick. Have you what's the biggest difference that you see in the like you notice any differences when you eat fruit, like homegrown fruit or homegrown vegetables versus store bought? Like how important do you think it is for people to grow their own food?
Well, a fruit, for example, is, you don't know what good food is until you eat good food. This is why if you're explaining about the raw food diet to somebody who's a meat eater, they can't understand how great you feel and
Yeah.
understand the difference. But once you do it, it's a different story. So with fruit, every time I bought fruit in the store, I thought that was the best I was getting, especially if you try to go to a health food store and buy it organic. But for bananas, for example, when I grow my own bananas and I eat my own bananas, I have trouble eating bananas from the store
Yeah.
because they're like a completely different food. And all fruit, they actually don't pick ripe when they should be picked. So all fruit is probably acid forming and just not what people think it is. So I definitely see a big difference in growing your own food if you can. And yeah, and if not, you got to do the research and maybe find somebody who's growing their own food. But also for your environment you live in too. Like you live in Minnesota. If I lived up there, I'd be focusing on some of the foods that possibly grow up there, during the seasons, of course. And
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of root vegetables up there. So if you're not 100% raw, you could do a lot of amazing things with those root vegetables.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you're eating for your environment, it definitely, I feel it helps on the quality of the food you're getting.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, during the summer, we try and get, as far as vegetables go, we get almost all of our vegetables from the farmers market. So we've got some great organic farms around here that, have some really good produce. So then we also get, so we get our vegetables, and then we get watermelon and apples and, cherry tomatoes and just regular tomatoes. But yeah, it's such that I do notice a difference in how I feel when I'm eating from the farmer's market versus the grocery store. So yeah, for people out there that maybe they're in an apartment or something, as Paul said, you can do sprouts or microgreens, but look for a farmer's market around you and get fresh produce from people that are growing it in your area. It really it makes a difference. So
You know, I see a lot of people out there today that are getting uh good food, and it's just, I mean, the whole thing with the fruitarians out there, and they people that eat a lot of fruit.
yeah,
And I don't think they're all getting it from a natural source. A lot of them are getting it from the supermarket or somewhere. So that's of a concern.
sure,
And in general, fruits and vegetables today that are bought in the supermarket, they're not great foods. You know, this is why I'd more recommend people grow your own sprouts and microgreens, which, you know, covers a lot of this. And, you know, the fruit today, well, it's always been a question, but you know, there's a controversy amongst the raw foodists out there is you know, like you got the 80-10-10 versus the Hippocrates.
yeah,
And like, you know, you got people successful on both, but you also have people that have bad stories about both.
yep,
You know, so a lot of this is guessing, but a lot of it is like, you know, people going what they see with other people and what's been seen. But it's so you know, there's not clear answers because to be honest, nobody's ever been eating a 100% raw food diet and lived any longer than the average person. I mean,
right,
not the average person, but there are people that eat junk that live in their 90s. But
yep,
you know, if we're eating raw, why aren't we living to 120? You know, and nobody ever has.
yeah,
Dr. Fred Bishey, he's in his 90s and he's doing great. I knew a guy, Dr. Stanley Bass, he made it to 104,
hmm,
you know, and he was raw till, you know, later in life, and then he started adding animals to his diet, believe it or not.
hmm,
So there's a lot to it, but I love the research. I just love doing the research and seeing the history of others and also myself and applying it and seeing it, and it's really fascinating to me.
yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. And like you mentioned, that's why, I think it's so important for people to experiment with, try doing the Hippocrates style for, a few months and see how you feel, and then versus the 80-10-10 style. And then that's a great way to know how, it works for you, the individual out there. And again, I think it could be a mixture. You could blend the two if you wanted to, and kind of take what works the best for you from each way and make that work for you in that way. So there's something to say, like Paul said earlier, experiment and just see how it feels, and that can be a great way to really get a good understanding of each way of doing it.
And you and I, we didn't speak about supplementation either.
Right?
So there's a lot of whole foods in the supplement form, but there's also a lot of supplements out there. And based on our blood work, how are we going to fix it? Will supplements help? You know, and I know just about everyone meet who's a vegan say that they take B12 supplementation, but there's other things as well. And a lot of the things I've been asking to my interviews lately is, what about the essential fatty acids?
Mm,
And I'm getting mixed opinions. And, you know, so supplements is a whole nother topic. And lately I've been stepping it up. I don't know if you've seen, but my interviews
yep.
and really pressing people. I don't do these. There's a lot of other people out there that do these interviews and they keep everything on a surface happy level. But I
Yeah.
really press the people that I interview for the deep answers and, you know, and why they recommend things and so on. And it's important information. And I've got a ton of interviews that I've done that I'm waiting to get out. But you know, the ones I put in the last 2 or 3 weeks, to me, if I would have saw those 20 years ago, would have saved me a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I do really appreciate that you do that in your interviews. You ask the really good questions that people want to know versus just asking what, is going to be an easy answer for the guest. So, I think that's so needed in in this community and just in
It
general.
is. It is because what's getting popular is, you know, there's a couple of YouTubers out there and they'll interview somebody and they'll just ask them such surface line questions, and it's just I don't want to give. I want people to come out of the interview not just feeling good
Yeah.
about what they're doing, but question what they're doing and like see like, well, you know, like I listed like Dr. Bishy, he's been doing this for like 60, 70 years.
Right.
Somebody who's doing this like 2 or 3 years is another story. It's great that they have an inspirational story, but I'll tell you that, when you find people that have been doing this a long time, and those are the people I interview for the most part.
Hmm.
I mean, I interview people not, oh, this person, ate apples for a whole year. No.
Yeah.
Tell me you're eating apples for 20 years and then we got an interview.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I like to do. And the people I have, I've just been blessed to be able to get in touch with some people that have been doing this a long time.
Yeah. Yep. And again, I really appreciate that you put that information out there for free. You share this information with people for free, and you can learn so much from your YouTube channel. And I mean, that just I hope people will go to your membership site as well, and take a look at that, because lot of good information in there that can help a lot of people. And it's there's not many sites out there like Paul's, and there's not many people out there doing, like we just said, the type of interviews that Paul's doing. So I did
Here,
act,
here,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, because you mentioned the omega threes, I did a omega quant omega 3 test in 2023, so last year, and they were good. It was good, but it wasn't great. So I'm still working on that myself.
Yeah, I was sick when I was younger, and I have a passion to help people get better and avoid having things that they don't have to deal with. So I'm really passionate to help people, and I don't want the obstacle coming up like, oh, you have to pay me to talk to me or do this. My member site it helps people that really want to dig deep, but most of my stuff's on YouTube or free out there, and it's really important to get that out. Now I know how to market. I mean, I know how to do that. I could easily, and I don't do this because I have what I call morals, and I also have a particular spiritual background on lifestyle, but I could shave my beard and honestly look 30 years younger. I know that. I know that. I just always had a beard. I like having a beard, but I know if I shaved this beard, I could look so much younger. I could take off my shirt. I exercise. I've always exercised, and I can get views that way. But it's not a gimmick. I want people to understand and get this information and seeing past the superficial and vanity and artificial stuff. And that shouldn't be the focus. I hear people saying, well, he looks good, even though he's eating like 50 bananas a day and he hasn't done a blood test in 20 years, but he looks good or something like that. And it's like, but let's get down to the nitty gritty here,
Hmm.
you know? So, so remember that, folks, and I want to help you. I want to help people get better. I want to see people get better. And cancer is nothing to play around with. Most of the people I deal with are already diagnosed with something.
Sure.
Just so happens that way. I mean, I see a lot of other people reaching out to people that are new to this or just getting into this. But it just so happens, maybe because I had an illness, a lot of people I talk to are already suffering, and I want to help them get out of that tunnel. And I know this information will, and if I can't help them, I built enough relationships to be able to send them to somebody who I know can.
Yeah. Terrific. Do you want Tessa did ask? She did ask what are your religious views, or what religion do you follow? I'm not sure if you
Okay.
want to talk about that.
100% I want to talk about that.
Perfect.
When I grew up, I was an atheist, even though I'm Jewish. But when I was sick, I looked at everything and everywhere. And then uh, I had an encounter and I met Jesus, and I call him Yeshua. And I was through reading the Bible, and it completely changed my life. So I would consider myself a follower of Yeshua, and I follow the Bible, which says in Genesis 1:29 we should eat a diet of fruits and vegetables. And men lived way beyond what men are living to, people are living to today. And it goes along perfectly from what we should eat, when we should eat, how much we should eat, and everything. I wrote a book called Health According to the Scriptures, and I teach a lot out of the Bible. I have a Bible channel on YouTube, not only health topics, but I believe fasting and praying is more powerful than any food out there.
Mm.
And I see a lot of people in today's world worshiping the creation and not the creator. But I'm worshiping the creator of the food. And fasting and praying is so powerful, such an important part of what I do. And I can only do that with Yeshua, Jesus. And I feel great about that. And that's my religious belief summed up.
I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I definitely, that is one of the things that and I don't talk about it a lot. Maybe I should talk about it more, but yeah, I think having God in your life it's like a superpower. It allows you to do things beyond what maybe you could do or what you think you can do, on your own. So having that spiritual connection is so powerful, and really, yeah, like you said, it goes hand in hand with, eating this way. It's talked about in the Bible, and yeah, it's just it's something that I'm sure you've seen this too, and heard people say this, but once I got in this lifestyle, my spirituality and my attraction to learning about it grew, exponentially. So, all right. Michelle Malley says, "Is there a specific laundry detergent you should be using? Do you have any? Do you have a specific laundry detergent that you use?"
I think we use seventh generation, which you get from Whole Paycheck or something. I
Yeah.
think that's what we use. I
Okay.
mean,
Nice.
Whole Foods, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The one that we use is called um, Molly's Suds. Molly's Suds. That's the one that we use.
I did get these sheets that you could buy and just throw them in there, trying to save plastic and all of this, and I used that for a while, but
Okay.
my children said they didn't do the job as well.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes when you go to these more natural products, there's a
But
little bit of,
yeah, the ideal thing is you make your own.
yeah.
Figure out how to make your own. It's not difficult at all.
Right.
Take the time and figure it out.
Yep. Yeah, with the internet, it's so easy to figure out how to make these things now. But yeah, we do use Molly Suds, but there's definitely recipes out there you can start using as well. Let's see. Judith says, which root veggies do you recommend? And what do you eat in a day?
Great questions. The root vegetables, I don't really eat the root vegetables because most of them have to be cooked, and I'm not up in Minnesota or in that type of environment, so I don't really focus on those. I mean, turmeric is good. I mean, I'll have some carrots sometimes, but for me, what I eat in a day, pretty much for the most part, for the last many years, I would eat 2 meals a day. I would have one meal, a fruit meal, and I adjusted the times. I used to do one earlier and then one early in the afternoon. Then I went to one midday and then one later early in the evening. But I had one fruit meal, one salad meal. That'd be pretty much what I did for a long time. Uh, I have done and experimented with, and I like it, is OMAD, one meal a day. And so I dabble in that sometimes.
Nice.
But pretty much I eat 2 meals a day, one fruit, one vegetable meal. But when I do OMAD, it's either a fruit or vegetable meal, or maybe even a mixture of the two. But I try not to eat more than that, and I definitely try not to eat late at night.
Got it. Perfect. Maria says, what is your opinion about juicing? And do you consume juices?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, I juice every day for the most part. I love juicing. I don't think we should juice fruit juice under any circumstance. Uh, but I do vegetable juices. I think juicing microgreens is excellent. And so I love juicing. I love the Nama J2 juicer, which is the big rave now, and for very good reason why. But I love the Nama J2 juicer. Uh, I used to even put a carrot or an apple in my juice. I don't do that anymore. Now it's just like cucumber, celery, and spinach or microgreens and just leave it at that. And I just absolutely love it. So some people would consider that a fasting, but I interviewed uh, the guy from True North recently who runs a fasting place, and he says only if water is only fasting. If you're juicing, you're just eating a very minimal amount. So, but if you consider, yeah, but I do try to get one green juice in every day. Two would be ideal. Love juicing and recommend it, but not fruit juice.
Got it. And Janet says, why not fruit juice?
Well, there's fructose in fruit, and if it's mixed with the fiber in a whole fruit, it slows it down from getting into the system too fast. So some people say that if it's within the fruit and whole fruit, then it's just fine. There are people that are concerned that fructose is fructose, even if it's in the fruit.
Mhm.
So there is a controversy that I'm actually studying and looking at about if it's in the fruit, the whole fruit, is it still fructose or not? Is it still going to affect us the same way as it was in candy or soda? But when you extract it from the fiber, now you have straight up fructose, and it very well could act just as like high fructose corn syrup
Mhm.
or one of these other things that so I'd be very careful with that. So, for example, if somebody's going to eat an apple, they eat an apple. If somebody's going to eat apple juice or drink apple juice, you don't have the fiber with it now. So now you're drinking like pretty much sugar water. It has nutrients in there, which is okay, but it's a controversial thing, but I don't recommend it. And it was just a couple of years ago, I would be making a star fruit, apple juice, beet juice, fruit punch. Like this is great, but whether we want to admit it or not, we're all sugar addicts. And we have a really hard time believing, trusting, and foregoing that type of thing. And, the more I've learned about it and learned about it, I don't want to touch that stuff because the whole reason I'm eating this way is not to put junk in my body. So if fructose, whether it's from soda or sugar or something else, yes, if the delicious fruit, the whole fruit can stop that from being an issue, then that's wonderful. But if is a possibility of it in a extracted form that might not stop it, why take the chance?
Makes sense. And you have speaking of the NAMA, you have a code, right? A discount code for people if,
Yes, thank you for asking. If you go to get a Nama juicer or any of the accessories, it's code Paul10, Paul10, and you'll get 10% off. It's definitely worth it. It's quite expensive, but you don't have to pay it all at once. They have a way you could pay in three payments, but I highly recommend it. It's changed the game with juicing. I juiced a lot over the years, but this makes it so much better and easier.
yeah. And like we said, if the easier you can make it, the better chance you have at being successful. So, um, Maria says, what would you recommend for someone that doesn't like salads very much? Is combining monomeal fruit meals with some greens like lettuce or spinach good?
Well, why if you don't like salads, I would recommend getting a good dressing or making good dressings because you can make your own dressing to make a bad salad good. So a lot of salads aren't tasty, but if you had avocados or some type of nut-based dressing to it, it could really taste delicious. And so I have recipes on my website of salad dressings. So that makes a big difference. But if you want to eat salad greens with fruit, to get your greens in, yeah, do that. That's fine. Uh, a moringa is something else I do a lot, which is it has a lot of nutrients, but the green juice, if I didn't like salads, I would be doing the green juice because you're drinking like it's like equivalent to eating salads. It's really amazing. But I think it's important to get your greens in and people need to do that one way or the other. Some salad greens are more bitter than others, and I know a lot of people that don't like salads until they taste my salads with the dressings and how I make them, and they're like, that's pretty good. Now, the other thing is you can learn how to make recipes, and some recipes are more simple than others. And yeah, so My wife makes delicious recipes, and sometimes she has them on her channel and shows them. And for me, like yesterday, uh, one of my papaya trees got knocked down, and I saw green papaya, and I heard you can make green papaya salad. So I took the green papaya and I shredded it up, and I put some red pepper, some celery, some cucumbers, some squash in there. Mixed it all up with a Thai basil, a Thai dressing, and I put some soaked pistachios on top of it. It
Mm,
was delicious.
wow. Yeah, it
Yeah.
sounds amazing. And I would just you know, back up what Paul said. Definitely the dressing is so huge. And also, Maria, you can grab my book, Five-Star Salad Revolution, to raise what I call your green esteem. And one of the ways to do that, like Paul said, is to drink some green juice or, have a green smoothie. Those are some easy ways to start getting in more greens to start changing your taste buds and making salads taste better. So, and yeah, just putting together easy recipes like Paul said, can be a good way to get your palate acclimated to eating more of those greens. Janet, thank you very much for recommending my book. Let's see. I think so. JJ says she loves moringa. I remember seeing a moringa. You made a video about moringa. I don't know, a few years ago maybe. But so you grow moringa, is that right?
I grow moringa, and it's a part of my daily diet. I think it's one of the superfoods that people should take in their diets, and I love it. I love it. I grow it, and just planted some more trees. Let me put it this way. I have in my house over maybe 70 fruit trees.
Wow.
Fruits that all you guys crave, the jackfruits, 60 mango trees, soursop, and all this. The most important tree in my yard is moringa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think is it called the miracle tree? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, there's another tree called the miracle fruit, but this
Oh,
one is it has everything you need. It's amazing.
nice.
It's so easy to grow.
Awesome. All right. Do you think the powdered moringa is a good substitute if you can't grow it yourself?
Absolutely. I actually have it on my website at rawlife.com.
Oh,
I have it
perfect.
in powder and in capsules, rawlife.com. Definitely, most people can't grow it themselves,
Yeah.
so definitely or get that. It's powerful.
Well, perfect. All right. Janet said, where does he live to have all these trees?
I live in Lake Worth, Florida, which is just south of West Palm Beach.
Nice. Oh, I'll ask the same thing. All right. Well, we
And
are.
I also have a channel that I talk about the trees called Fruitful Trees on YouTube. Fruitful Trees.
Oh,
I talk all about my fruit trees and everything about it. And I also,
cool.
if anyone wants to order fruits in the mail, I have friends. I visit farms often, and you could order. Like right now is avocado season. Florida avocados are the best, and you could order them right from their farms. So it's really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know about your Fruitful Trees channel. I'm gonna check that out for sure.
It's a pleasure to do every day, and it's yeah, you'll love it. I know you'll love it. You're gonna contact me and say, "Wow."
Yeah, I will. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions. I don't know if anybody wants to squeeze one last one in, but we are at the hour mark. So, if there's no more questions, we can get to the drawing and we can pick a name for the winner of whatever ebook you want of my three. And then Paul is offering as well his book. What did you say? Which one was it?
The raw life.
The Raw Life. All right. So I've got everybody's name put into the wheel. I will bring in the wheel here. There it is. All right. So we've got 6 people. So 1 in 6 chance of winning these amazing books. So let's see who wins. Here we go. Ooh, it was almost Annie, but it is Tessa. Tessa, congratulations. You are the winner of my ebook and Paul's ebook, So just email me at matt@myrawintuition.com, and I will get you my ebook, and I'll copy Paul on that email so he can get you his ebook as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, everybody, and thank you, Paul. I really appreciate all the all the wisdom you shared today, but just the wisdom and knowledge that you offer people every single day on your various channels and on your website. So thanks for everything that you're doing.
Thank you, everybody. Keep up the great work. And again, check out my stuff, especially if you're suffering from an illness or something like that. Don't overeat, but enjoy the food that God made. Thank you.
Love it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Join us next week, same time, same place, and we'll have another show for you. But until then, always follow your raw intuition.